Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we will talk about being limited versus being dominated in an economical statist set. Last time we stopped where we talked about what freedom actually is, what kind of space you need to run your own life in that space without being dominated by a state. So from last video, I let the distinction out. What does it mean to be limited and what does it mean to be dominated? Today, I will talk about exactly that. And I think it's very important to make this distinction because both are pretty similar on the first look. Both basically mean that you can't do whatever you want to do. But there's a very important distinction that carries a lot of weight. So I want to show you why this distinction actually matters. And for this, I will give you a little thought experiment. We are talking about two slaves. One has a master who is really, really bad to the slave, who is whipping him and shouting at him if he does something wrong or not as intended, while the other slave has a great, nice master who never lays hand on him and treats him always with the respect needed. But my question to you, is the second slave free? And the answer to that is obviously no, he isn't. He's still a slave and he's living at the mercy of another person. And this is very important to understand because it is not just being limited, it is being dominated by another person. You're living from his goodwill, and this goodwill can certainly change any given second. So, is it a true life in freedom? No, it is a life being dominated by another person. Even though you are maybe having it good at the moment, there's always the danger that this person changes their mind and thus basically destroying your freedom. So you're a person under arbitrary power, and this is not being limited, it is being dominated. Being limited, on the other hand, is natural in every society. However, what does it mean for you to be limited? To be limited basically only means that you're limited by other person's right. Right. You cannot do anything that is against their rights. For example, if their right is to live in dignity, you are not allowed to take their dignity away, or you can't take their dignity away, which is being limited in a certain sense. You're not allowed to steal from another person. That is being limited. In a complete free society without any rules or any law, you could steal from the other person and no one would really care apart from the person, maybe and the people that like that person. But in a normally free society, the kind of society we live in, you're not allowed to do so. You're limited exactly by the rights of the other person. And this is good. It is necessary to guarantee everyone's freedom. Because in a society without rules, only the strong are really free and the poor are not free. So it is very important to remember dominations when the state basically has power over you. Maybe the state decides in favor of you, is always nice to you, but there's always the option that the state could do to destroy your freedom, to take your rights away, and to dominate you. And in that sense, it is the way to totalitarian state. And this is obviously rather negative than positive. While in, for example, a free democratic order, you do have rights, and the state cannot interfere with those rights. They are granted to you, and they will stay with you. There is no state who can just take away your right for dignity or your right to decide which breakfast you want to eat. But being limited doesn't only mean that, it goes further because you have to think about scarcity. Scarcity holds you back from having everything you desire. You cannot have it, you are limited in that way. Is that bad? No, it's natural. Then comes, for example, time. It stops you from doing everything you want to do. Time stops you. You're limited through time. Is that bad? No, it's just natural. Then your body stops you from being as strong as you want to be. You can build towards a certain strength, but you cannot be stronger than, for example, the strongest machine in the world, because your body stops you from it. Is that bad? No, it's natural. It's a limitation. Being a person is very important here, because real limitation and real free limitation, when you live in freedom under those limitations, is being treated as a person under certain laws that limit you. It is the laws that limit you, for example, as I said before, from taking stuff from another person away. That limits you, but it is a good law that basically safeguards everyone's freedom in that sense. Domination, however, is if you live under the arbitrary will of someone, where someone can decide, oh, for you this right doesn't count anymore, but for this person the right still counts. This is arbitrary, and you basically get dominated here by the state, or to be precise, by another person. So let's come to a case example, and this is this time basically about the pandemic. It was a very bad situation, obviously, because there's a national health crisis in most countries at that time. What does the government do? Well, most governments actually stop people from being free of choosing where they wanted to go. Or they could shut, for example, festivals down, or restaurants, or bars, or shopping malls, because it was a health risk. Is that basically dominating its citizens? In a way, yes, in a way, no. It depends on how the government actually handles it. So there's case A, and this is the case where the government decides those rules that basically shut those things down and limit your freedom of choosing where you want to go. But you are basically able to go to a court and fight against those rules. And the court has to have the power to actually grant you rights and give you those rights back. For example, if they close your restaurant, you have to be able to go to court, fight against it, and if the court decides, yes, you're right, you should be able to open your restaurant again. And those rules should also apply for those people who release the news. This would be being limited by something. It is not being dominated by the government, because it is the rules that apply for national health security, and those can be taken back once the situation is different, or it was, for example, granted without any rights to do so. Then the court can take it back and you have your rights back. That is all right. But there is case B. So, and as you could guess, case B is being dominated by the government. What happens here? Well, basically, the government or a ruler releases a decree saying, well, yeah, the national health crisis, you cannot go outside anymore, can't go into restaurants anymore, and all of that. However, those rules don't count for those people who release them. They still can go outside, they can still go eat. It doesn't count for them. And also, and this is the most important change, is that you cannot go to court to fight those rules. If those rules just apply and you cannot do anything against it, and no court has a power to basically go against those rules or change them around, then you're getting dominated, because then you have no choice. You just have to follow anyway how sound the argument is, and how sound the crisis is, and how important those measures are actually, and how right they are. You just have to follow them, and you cannot do anything against it. And maybe someone in the government can say, oh, well, this person can still go out, this person can still go out, this person can still go out, but you can't go out. And this is being dominated. So let us talk about an economic example. For example, a worker whose skill and his workforce doesn't guarantee him an income that is enough to live. That is not being dominated by scarcity. It is being limited by natural things, even though obviously it is bad, but it is still not in that sense injustice through rules or anything like that. On the other hand, we have, for example, a trader who is not allowed to sell poison as food. This is just having honesty in the economy and honest trade. So that is also being limited and not dominated. But then you have a different case, and that is, for example, a businessman who loses his business because a license doesn't get renewed, or, for example, license doesn't get granted by the government, and no one tells him why. No rule says why it is not granted again. It is just because the mood of an official swifted. That is being dominated because here there's no rule that tells him, well, your license doesn't get renewed because of that and that. No, it is just the mood of an official. And he's saying, no, I don't want your license to be renewed, so it won't be renewed. And this is really getting dominated by the government. He cannot do anything against it because the government itself has the power and is the only thing in the whole state who can actually renew that license. Can't go to court and tell them, well, I want my license renewed because I don't go against any law. He could try that, but would it work? Probably the court would not act in his direction because the officials have the power here in reality. So in the end, getting dominated is by someone's will, and being limited is by the rules or by nature itself. Living in a world without limitations is not freedom. It is fantasy, because there is no such world without limitations. Everyone is limited in a sense. It only matters if you can go against those limitations, either by law or if those limitations are by law, then you're fine. If those are basically limitations through arbitrary power, then you're being dominated. I hope you liked the video. I hope you could learn something. And if you have critics or any advice, write it down in the comments. And bye for now. Have a great day.